Hi, I'm Jean McAlister, the CEO and founder of McAlister Institute. I want to welcome everybody that's attending this event today. I appreciate that you're taking your valuable time to spend it with us. McAlister Institute was formed 43 years ago. We wanted to carry the message of recovery to those who struggled with drug and alcohol, mental health, and homelessness. Today, we started with 3 programs, and today we have 27 different programs. We serve over 1,500 people a month, and I am very proud of the staff that I work with and want to actually give them credit, because when somebody compliments me about McAlister Institute, I know that it is the staff who cares and gives their hearts to people who suffer are responsible for that compliment. I'm sure everybody is aware of the pandemic and the disaster that it's caused throughout our cities and state. One of the things that I'm very proud of is that we did not shut our doors at any time during the pandemic. We did telehealth sessions. We then opened up our doors. Today we are seeing people face to face. My staff has been very courageous and very brave. One of the things that has happened as a result of the pandemic is that our major fundraisers have been eliminated. We had a bingo game that supported our programs for a long time. We had a thrift store, we had the Walk for Sobriety, and we had this event that we relied on to be able to provide services to those people who did not come under county funding restrictions. We still do that today. We're hoping that somehow we are able to reestablish bingo in the thrift store and reestablish some donations. One of the things that happens in my life is that rarely do I go anywhere that I do not have somebody come up and say to me, "Your program saved my life. Thank you for giving me my daughter back, my son back. We love your program, and thank you so much for doing that." But I know in my heart of hearts that it is my staff who carry that message and make us look so very, very good. They have saved thousands of lives, and I very much appreciate them and am proud of them. Now it is my task to introduce a man who is a champion among men. He has done many projects in San Diego County. He has received many awards for his humanitarian efforts. Actually, I could read off his accomplishments on 2 pages. However, I want to talk about the man I know and introduce to you him. He is a man who loves his family and is so devoted to them that when they call, he answers their call no matter what he is doing. He is a man filled with passion that spills over into the lives of others and inspires them to be better and do better. He is a man that cares about those who suffer and a true believer that the human soul can be healed. He is a man that champions recovery. He is a man whose gentle touch has changed the lives of others. And with him today is our Associate Executive Director, Marissa Varon, who will interview Dene Oliver.
So thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
Very happy to have you. It's really been an honor to work up to this moment of having you as a part of McAlister. But I would love to know how you came to know of McAlister.
You know, I think that my first knowledge of McAlister was through a good friend of mine by the name of Jim Mulvaney. That's one of my early recollections of talk of McAlister Institute. And his passion for what Jean and the organization were doing, and then we had an executive assistant at Oliver Macmillan go through treatment at McAlister, And so I got to see her journey and welcome her back to the company and introduce the concept of sobriety company-wide for those that didn't understand it when she was re-entering. And of course, McAlister continued to be really engaged. And then with time, I got to meet and spend time with Gene and of course with you, and now your board and others. So it's been a real pleasure to get to spend time with people that have been pioneers in recovery in San Diego and been so committed to it for so many years.
43 years.
43 years, a lot of time.
It is. So when you are talking to either staff at Oliver Macmillan or just in the community, what does it look like when you're introducing the concept of sobriety?
Well, I think it always depends on the audience, right, and how educated they are. I've been really open about my own sobriety because I've felt like it was such a gift. And I also wasn't necessarily served up the option because it was flashed in the newspaper when I went to treatment almost 30 years ago, because I was involved in some things that were relatively high profile, and you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And so I think that was a great opportunity for me to begin to make known that my life had shifted and changed, and through that I've of course been able to help other people. And so again, depending on the audience, I'm either talking very literally about sobriety and what it's about, and lots of facts around it, or I'll talk more esoterically around the spirituality of life and the piece from here to here. And frankly, those are all things that I learned through my own sobriety.
So you've shared a lot with me about uniting the head and the heart. If you were to take kind of a fusion approach to both of those things and maybe offer a single message that connected the head and the heart about addiction,
well,
what would that look like?
I think, you can think it to death, and that's what a lot of people end up doing. And you can't outthink this disease. It is a disease of the mind, so to outthink it, you're basically taking a center of where a disease is propagating and trying to negotiate with it. And that doesn't work. So, I think I said last year at our luncheon that, there's one answer, and it's that it's a spiritual journey, and you've got to make that connection back into your heart and soul and really get into how you're feeling. I would say, the mind is a great invention, and we're really lucky we have one. But to live there and to be guided strictly between what's between your ears, that's a dangerous journey for anyone, sobriety, addiction, or not.
Yes, I think that's part of what makes Jean so special. I tend to be someone who lives in my head, and she absolutely operates from the heart, and
Right.
I think that's part of what makes McAlister Institute so special and why people do talk about the heart of McAlister.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, the head is a great place for fear to plant seeds and continue to live. And the heart is not a place of fear. The heart's a place of hope. The heart is a place of love. It's a place of opportunity. And the mind can do some of that, but generally it can run down some of those dark spots. And I'm not advocating not to use your mind. I'm just saying connect the two and have some balance in how you use them.
So when you say dark spots, there are many people who would describe the disease of addiction as one that is filled with darkness and isolation. And how do you see that play out with either sponsees that you're working with or in the community?
Well, I think all of us have a tendency to go to fear. Somewhere, somehow, early in our lives, from either actual experience or things we project onto ourselves, it's very easy to go to those spaces that are about fear and failure, and generally it's about loss. And so, to me, it is, it's first and foremost in my life because I still go to fear. And I have to work to keep myself out of it all the time. It's nothing from which you're cured. It's something around which you gain an awareness. And so once you have that awareness and you can share it with others to say, look, What are you afraid of? What's the worst thing that can happen? Can you live with it? Almost always the answer to you, can you live with it, is yes. Then you get into the space where you can say, okay, I'm relatively enlightened about what I'm afraid of. And then you can say, okay, what are the list of things and the actions that I can take that create the highest probability that I'm not going to fail at what I'm afraid of failing at? What am I not going to lose, which I'm afraid of losing? You get into positive action as opposed to this.
How would you apply those lessons to someone who might be considering sobriety or not considering it at all?
You know, when people are at a pivot point of determining whether they get sober or not, it's a really painful period. And I don't care if you are on the street or living on a hilltop. Making those kinds of shifts is a really difficult thing. And you know, I remember saying to a close friend of mine who works in the addiction world and health, Dr. Lee Rice. He was with me in Catalina Island when some of my buddies and he helped me realize I needed to not fly back to San Diego, but I needed to fly to the Betty Ford Center. And I said to him walking down the street, you know, Lee, I just can't imagine going through the rest of my life without a glass of wine at dinner. And he says, that's actually why you're going, because people that don't need help can totally imagine going through life without a glass of wine at dinner every night. So, you know, I think that it's a point in time generally where people who are going to accept help have just gotten to the point where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they're ready for change. And if there's one truism, it's that things don't change if things don't change. And addicts and alcoholics have generally tried everything they possibly can and can't make it work. And generally by the time they're on that precipice, if they could have done it on their own, they would have done it by then.
Gene always says that it's not your job to get someone there, but it is your job to be there when they do get to that point.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about AA and NA and the recovery world is that people are there to help other people. They don't need anything from them. They're not asking anything. They want to give it away and they want to help. And they want to help because, number one, that feels good when you're helping somebody else. And number two, they all recall that when they walked in the door, they needed the same help. And there was somebody there, a few people there, a group that made the difference for them. So it's such an opportunity, you know, to help people.
You know that Gene actually, McAlister Institute was one of the first providers of gender responsive treatment with our Kiva program. So. Well,
not surprising. You know, I love continuing to learn about Jean and her journey, and I hope she's around forever so I can keep learning from her and watching, and the city of San Diego and county can continue to benefit from all she has to continue to give away, including to you and the next generation of McAlister leaders.
Absolutely. So you have been around the block a few times, and you've seen a lot, especially in your work around homelessness. What have you seen change over the years, and even most recently with the pandemic?
So I'm forever hopeful that we'll allocate resources to housing the homeless. You know, we did Project 25 with the United Way that I helped lead, where we picked off the street the 25 most costly patients. And if you were king or queen of the county of San Diego and everything folded up to you, you would never allow somebody to be homeless because it cost more for them to be on the streets than it does to house them and treat them.
Absolutely.
So, you know, unfortunately, all the people that are bearing the costs are in very different buckets, from hospital providers, to the police, to the courts, to the county, to the city, to business, etc. And so they're all kind of continuing to bleed as a result of the cost of it, as opposed to aggregating it and saying, you know, together we're going to end this. You know, again, it's a problem throughout the U.S. and all the big cities I go to for work, etc. I see it, and we've got to fix it.
Sounds like on the Venn diagram of head and heart, that solution to homelessness and substance abuse probably is right where the two meet.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. And you know, when you think about it, ending chronic homelessness is not only morally and ethically the right thing to do, it's good business. It makes economic sense to do it. But what we're not doing is pairing up the economic cost and the opportunity and the resources to do it, because they're in all these different buckets.
And yet it's wild to think that so many people know who the individuals are. Mm-hmm. Just somehow the data's not being collected, the story's not being shared, the intervention's not being coordinated. But reflecting back on the fact that you were saying 2008 was really a turning point for homelessness in San Diego, if we're looking forward to a slowed economy right now, what would you do if you were the king of the castle to prevent?
Well, I would get all these groups who are bearing the cost of it to come forward and say, we can either have a continuous slow bleed with the cost of this, or we can all look and say, look, here's what it's costing us. We're willing to put, on an annual basis, we're willing to put that money into a solution. And, you know, again, that's effectively what we tried to do with Project 25, and it just fell short of getting that level of partnership. But like so many of the things where we need solutions, it's going to take partnering. And we've got to have more effective and more efficient leadership and passion around it and partnering.
Do you think that there's a role for individuals to be playing?
Of course there is. At the very least, they could contribute to the appropriate causes. They could get educated and learn about the housing first model. You know, I still from time to time will listen to people talk about homeless people and say use the word bum, and not understand that the chronic homeless who we see are 90% of them are duly diagnosed. So they truly have a mental illness as well as their addiction, and they're unmedicated with the kind of medication they need to stabilize their mental illness, and at the same time they are addicted and self-medicating. So we learned through Project 25, when you go and say to those that are on the streets and homeless, if I will put a roof over your head tonight, will you come? No conditions, just will you come? 95% of the time the answer is yes. And a lot of people still believe the myth that the homeless are there because they want to live on the streets. Just not true. Now, they may not want to follow rules, but the way you begin to change a behavior is get the roof over their head, get them fed, and then start the process. You don't say to somebody, well, listen, you need to show up at the county at this time, and then you need to go to this office at that time, and we're going to do this service. And then when you do those things, and you suit up and show up, and you see change, then we're going to put a roof over your head. If those people could do that, they would have done it by now.
Here's the 12 hoops to jump through before you'll even...
Right. The art of the impossible.
So, in terms of hoops to jump through, what do you think some of the areas or barriers that still need to be removed, other than what you've talked about with maybe the stigma and investment?
I would say, again, the education piece of institutions and individuals around the possibility for solutions. There are solutions for this. And we're working on it, but we can do better.
We can, and I don't know if anyone else has this, but sometimes I lay awake at night thinking that problems just feel too big to solve, and that the complexity of them feels like we'll never get anywhere. And I'm always...
So you have all those thoughts rolling around in your head.
I do.
Right?
Yeah.
And then
That's
you
where
call
the
your
fears
grandmother.
are.
You call your grandmother, and she sends you down in your heart to regain some hope.
She does. She's so heart-driven, action-driven, that it's always a reminder that being just taking that first step and being a beacon of hope to others is a really positive starting point. And I know that that's something that you've done not just for individuals and families, but also for systems, and even by virtue of being here today, which we're so grateful for. And it was really one of the things that caused us to want to start the Dean Oliver Hope for the Homeless in Recovery Award, because we believe that recognizing individuals who are carrying the torch, like yourself, really need to be brought forth so that people know that there are solutions, that there are people who are working from the heart and uniting the head, and that they are being action-oriented and out there helping us to address some of our biggest challenges.
Well, thanks, Marissa. I think I'm just one small piece of a puzzle of many, many, many people in San Diego County who have worked on this for decades. And we didn't get to this place overnight, and it's not going to go away overnight. But it is going to continue to require people leaning into it and not giving up. And leaders that really care about it, and leaders that make it a top priority, just like dealing with the virus that we have. You know, this is in a way another form of a health tragedy that we've allowed to continue to go on in having those that are duly diagnosed living on the streets.
Absolutely. And, you know, we've even seen recently in the month of August, San Diego lost 279 individuals to accidental drug overdoses, which you think about those numbers and, you know, it's heartbreaking to think that every one of those people is a story, is a future lost, is someone who, you know, if maybe they would have had access to care, would have still been with us.
Right. Well, again, that's to me one of the beauties of McAlister, that you're treating more people than anyone else in San Diego County. McAlister is not the Betty Ford Center. McAlister is a place where those that are most in need and least able to pay for help or obtain help are treated. And that's a big deal. And that's the majority of the people that are chronically homeless. So, I think there's no bigger prevention for homelessness than sobriety and moving people out of the peril of becoming homeless through a deeper dive into their addiction.
Couldn't agree more. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No. I'm really proud of you. And just, it's a real honor for me to have an award that has homelessness as a part of it, that is such an important thing for us to all keep our minds on. As you know, I told you when we first sat here and we talked about this, I was a little self-conscious about having my name on it. And frankly, the reason that I'm okay with it is that you guys asked me to do, and you thought it would be helpful. And I just pray that people will reach out and lean into this, and they can do so easily. And if they want to help, they can help you all succeed in this battle and help the McAlister Institute today. Well, I want to thank everyone for participating today. I know I speak for Marissa and Jean and the rest of the board by saying we wish we were all together in the same room, and I know you do. We had a great time last year, and the support from so many of you was so meaningful for what McAlister's been able to do this year. So without that support from the lunch last year, there would have been hundreds of people that would not have been served. So for that, I want to say thank you to you all. And I don't know about you, but for me to hear Mark's story today is so moving, and it's why I have been involved in sobriety and homelessness, because of my own great fortune, and to have gotten sober and to have been able to help in homelessness. And Mark is somebody who started in those halls helping others at St. Vincent de Paul and elsewhere, and ultimately learned many years ago that he had a journey of his own that he needed to go on. And he did so, and he did so with the help of the McAlister Institute. So as you heard from Mark, it likely wouldn't have happened for him without that. And since McAlister helped Mark, look what Mark's been able to go on and do for others. Addiction and homelessness are dark places. They're places you don't want to go. They're places you don't want your loved ones to go. But I know nearly every one of you sitting out there today has had some exposure in your family, your immediate family, or your close friends, where you have experienced the darkness of addiction and or homelessness on families that are immediately close to you and those that are proximate. So I know that most all of you understand this and understand what it means to get help. So that's what McAlister does every year. They've helped over 15,000 people in this last year. With this pandemic, there are more people than ever that need help. And they need it tomorrow. And they're going to need it the day after. And that number is growing. So can McAlister do it all? No. But can they make a big difference? Yes. They treat more people than anyone else in San Diego County. So today, understanding what it means to help others, and all of you who are here clearly are those people that know how it feels to be in pain and also know how it feels to be able to help others. So the help we want to ask of you today is to help support financially those people that are going to come to McAlister that without your help wouldn't be able to get treatment. So I am going to put forward today a match of $20,000 to say that I'm willing to match any commitment made today up to the first $20,000, and we're hoping to hit a much bigger number than that today. So I'm in. I'm going to continue to be in. This is important, and I hope you will be too. So please reach into your heart, and I know this is a time that's harder than ever to contribute. All of us have experienced some economic pain through this, amongst many other forms of pain. So find the lightness, find the opportunity, help McAlister, help others, and join us today in contributing to this amazing organization for a cause that is so special to so many people's hearts, including Jean and Marissa. Thanks for being here today. It's super meaningful. And we're going to see you next year for a really great celebration and an even more amazing lunch. Thanks for coming.
I want to thank everybody today for being here, but I also would ask that you light your candle with me to illuminate recovery so that people can see it and walk out of the darkness into the light. Thank you so very much.